Room, episode 42. Baby in the background, right on call. I'd like to welcome Abbie Dillon, class of 1977 to 81, Erin Reid, class of 1978 to 82, and Eric Smith, class of 1978 to 82. I wanted to read what I sent you guys, because I probably have some followers that I didn't have before watching because of you guys, whether you believe that or not. And this is simply what Hoya Locker Room is all about. The goal of Hoya Locker Room is to salute and celebrate our Hoya family. And that's what you guys represent to me. Each of you in your own way have inspired me just by being who you are, both on and off the court. So I'm going to start with superlatives for Abbie. Abbie Dillon is in the Georgetown Athletic Hall of Fame. She was team MVP her junior and senior year. She's number 6 on the all-time scoring list for women's, number 16th in rebounding, number 23rd in free throw percentage. And this is a trivia bonus quiz that I'm just gonna put out there because nobody would ever get this one. She's number 16th all-time between men's and women's, and she's behind AI. So no one would ever put AI and Abbie in the same sentence together. I just did it. Yay! That's Abbie Dillon. Thank you so much for being here, Abbie. Please pause before you take the mic. Next is Erin. Erin represents to me, and I told her this in the pregame, the coolest person on Georgetown's campus. I was a freshman when she was a junior, much like Smitty, and just the way she conducted herself was that of a captain. She's number 8 all-time in assists, number 8 all-time in steals, and number 25 in points. And I want to thank you, Erin, for coming through. And I've maintained a bit of a relationship with Erin, so I'm cool with her. So, it's great to see you.
Good seeing you.
Eric Smith. What can I say about Eric Smith? Other than he was my roommate sophomore year, and all the transgressions after that, I applied to him. Smitty is considered the number 37th all-time Hoya. He was team MVP of the 82 team. He was second team all Big East 81, third team all Big East 82, which makes no sense because that might have been his best year. And he's just the epitome of what a Hoya should represent. So I want to thank you three for coming through. I'm really happy for you to be here. I'm just going to start with your journey to Georgetown. What was that like? What did you know about the school? If you want to add in your high school career, everything's welcomed here, but thank you so much. And we'll start with Erin.
Oh, well, Abbie should go first. That's
okay. Abbie should go. See, I like that. See, that's the
Georgetown
thing.
I'm the oldest one here.
That's the Georgetown thing, and I stand corrected because I have so much respect for seniority. Abbie, please.
Okay. I always love telling this story because I was the youngest of 11 children. And so there was not much thought giving where I was going to go to college. But back then that was pretty typical. And I had a twin sister who was very artistically talented and brilliant. So I was going to apply to all the big schools. She was applying to the really academic schools, and I was applying to the less academic school nearby. Senior year, April 15th of my senior year, I played in a DC All-Star game. I went to a very small high school, all girls, Immaculata in Washington, DC. And I think it's interesting that all four of us are from DC originally. So April 15th of my senior year, I played in this All-Star game that was a prelude to the college All-Star game for women. Carol Blazejowski and some very famous Trailblazers played in that game, and we were just the warm-up game, high school. The very next day, I got a call from Coach Carr, who said, "Hi, I'm the coach of Georgetown. Would you like to come to Georgetown next year?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Can you meet me in the admissions office tomorrow?" Okay, so I went down to Georgetown with my mom. He said, "Okay, you have to fill out an application while we sit here in the admissions office." I filled out the applications. I didn't even know that Georgetown had 5 different schools. He goes, "Well, you got to pick an area of study." I said, "Okay, let's see. Oh, the business school doesn't have a language requirement. I think I'll try that." So I checked business. And then the next day he called me up and said, "Congratulations, you're in. You're the very first full ride women's basketball scholarship that we're going to award." So it's so different from these days where girls get recruited in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, where I wasn't recruited at all. I probably would have gone to maybe Catholic or Maryland or GW and just tried to play on the team because I love sports. But the rest is history, and I loved every second of my Georgetown experience.
That's great.
Wow. Wow. From there to the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
You know, it was all set up for you. It was all
Yeah.
set up. Erin, you're up.
Kind of the same with Abbie. I mean, back then, it was so different. You know, I played high school ball. My team won the state championship. Growing up, my mom was single mom raising 3 girls, and we were, you know, 1 year apart. And I took a liking to basketball. And I remember telling my mom one day, I knew she was going to have all of us in college, and that I was going to, you know, pay my own way to college through basketball. And, you know, it ended up happening. Same thing, Mr. Carr. We won the state championship my senior year. I think Smitty's boys team won it too at Maryland. I went to Parkdale High School, and we had 2 players on my team who they went to Southern University in Louisiana, but we took recruiting visits to American, GW, Virginia Tech, and then my coach wanted me to go to Naval Academy, I think because she thought I needed maybe a little discipline at that time, but I wasn't going there. But long story short, Mr. Carr, Frank Carr, the coach at Georgetown, his son went to my high school, and he never went to the women's basketball games, the girls' basketball games, but he went to one game, and he went home and said, "Hey, Dad, there's a really good girl on our team." And Mr. Carr came and saw me, and same thing with Abbie. He's like, "Would you like to go to Georgetown?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll go." And so I signed there, and Abbie was the first full scholarship, and I ended up being the second full scholarship women's athlete there. So, you know, it was crazy because you know, it was different back then.
Yes.
But,
I'm interested to hear what you two think about the state of women's athletics right now, particularly as we've just seen in the NCAA, the disparity that continues.
Oh, yeah.
to exist. So I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I would say I'm a little jealous of how far it's come and how much the women get these days, even though compared to the men, it's all relative. But when Erin and I played, we had to put in our own money to get one Georgetown sweatshirt. We also were given by the university 1 pair of sneakers a season. Of course, back then I was like, I can't believe somebody's giving me a free pair of sneakers. But we got 1 pair of sneakers. And also we were given $5 for every meal that we were gonna miss on campus, $5. And of course we went to McDonald's.
I'm trying to close my mouth.
Yeah.
No, there was no disparity in that.
And we took the bus everywhere. I mean, we played Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Boston College. I mean, we traveled, we played it even though there wasn't a Big East. We played a lot of the Big East schools, but we took the bus everywhere.
Sounds like reparations are due. Right.
Yay, we got a lot to talk about the women versus men, but we'll let Smitty talk about himself.
Bennett, we just buzzed you in.
Just buzz me in.
You're in.
Let's see. Of course, I played football and basketball in high school, and
You're a 3-sport athlete.
make all medal in both. And I was the last person that did that was in 1972, a guy named Arthur Daniels. And I was told, so I had colleges looking at me for both. And it was kind of a tough decision, but most of the schools that wanted me for football were all in cold weather states. So, plus I wanted to stay close to home, and I didn't know anything about Georgetown. I used to see them play on Channel 5, and looking at their team, I thought the school was all black at the time. But once Coach Thompson came out to my house and had the doctor get in the door, I think he had a lot of influence on my mother. He actually, the things that he said was stuff that we were looking for. I was one of 7. Actually, I have 8. I have a stepbrother also. and none of my other siblings went to college. So I wasn't thinking about going to college until that opportunity presented itself. So I felt real fortunate to go to Georgetown because, you know, as Gene knows, Coach Thompson taught us a lot on and off the court. And I appreciate everything that he taught us.
Three of the most humblest people I know. So I'm gonna pull it out of you. But thank you, Smitty. I know that was you're a man of few words. So I appreciate it. I guess I want to dive back into what we had started to talk about a little bit, which is the disparity between men's and women's. And if we want to talk about it in the time frame when you guys were playing, it's almost like you know, you guys were trailblazers. So it was like whatever was being done was more than what was being done before. But if you could talk about how it evolved to today and your feelings and thoughts on it, I'd love to hear it.
Well, no, I go ahead, Smitty.
As far as what Abbie was talking about, as far as shoes and stuff like that, only thing different from the men's program is that we flew to different places. But a lot of times we took the train also. But far as shoes concerned, we had two pair, one to practice and one to play in. It's not like now you look on the court, you see these guys come out with different pair of shoes every game, different colors and everything. You know what I'm saying? So one time I had to go out and scuff my shoes up so I could get a new pair.
Yeah.
So
it was interesting because I remember, you know, right when we got there, I mean, the men's team, you know, Coach Thompson had brought them into the national spotlight. And it's interesting because Mr. Carr, Frank Carr, was the women's the girls' high school coach at St. Anthony's. Yeah. And that's where Coach Thompson was. So he brought Mr. Carr over with him. So they had a special relationship. And, you know, I remember Coach Thompson he came to all our games. The guys came to all our games, but, you know, we had a little tiny locker room, I think, Abbie, with 2 showers, no shower curtain. And then I remember the guys would get a big stereo system. And then I think we got a little boom box maybe. You know, so they would get something, and then the Title IX, we kind of get something, but it was maybe on a smaller scale. And I'm saying,
remember, we would have the cheerleaders at 1 game a year.
Yeah.
You remember we practiced from 7 to 10 almost every night, but we practiced after the men, so we would have to sit and wait until you guys were finished, and a lot of times that would go past 7, and we would just sit in the hallway and wait. Do you remember that, Erin?
Yes, I do. We were always the late game, but, you know, back then we were just happy to play. And again, the men's team, you know, brought the school to the national spotlight, and we were such good friends with everybody and we just wanted to play. Yeah. So it wasn't a big difference, all of that. We were just happy. I was happy that I got a college education for free, that my mother didn't have to pay for it. You know, it was the little things that we were happy for that. And that's all we needed. You know, our 1 pair of shoes was good. We didn't know any better. Right. Remember, Abbie, we flew to 1 game, and we were all excited because we got to get on a plane. We didn't go past, I think the furthest game was Virginia Tech, and we maybe went up to Rhode Island one time, or Syracuse. We flew, but that was it. But we were happy. We were on TV, I think, once.
No, I was so appreciative to be at Georgetown and receive a free education. I mean, it was, if you think about it, unbelievable, because I was doing something I loved. I played all sports in high school and wanted to play a lot of sports in college, and Mr. Carr called me up, so I chose basketball. But I just loved every second of it. And I also looked at it like it was a job, like other people did work study or had to work to be able to afford to be at Georgetown. And my job was to play basketball.
Exactly. So you know, the thing, Gene, you know, that was 40 some years ago. And what happened in the NCAA, there is no excuse for that because it was funny, that weight room, because it brought me back to the boombox story. You know, that cannot happen.
I was shocked.
And it's a shame that it happened. We can't be back. We're 40 years later, and we just took steps backward. And I don't know what you do to prevent that, but it really hurt my heart to see that.
Well, what was interesting that you know, that Coach Carr story and Coach Thompson story, I had never heard that before. Did not know that. I think that's pretty awesome, because if we want things to happen, sometimes it has to start at like that base level. So if you got the men's and women's coach at least on the same page, so they can address that at that level. You know, particularly if they're friends. Like, I'm going to make sure that the women's program is at least on par, right? Receiving the same things, because we're in this together. And
Exactly.
that to me is a segue into my introduction to Georgetown women's basketball is because of Smitty.
Yeah.
Smitty was such a big fan.
Oh yeah.
And he would go, and you know, I'm seniority. I'm trying to. He's successful here, so I usually tagged along. So that was my introduction into the women's basketball program, and it's almost like that shared experience. I want to highlight the 1979-80 season.
Oh yeah.
Because literally, the women's program was a game away from being in the NCAAs, which at that time was only 32 teams. So I just think if that would have happened, that would have been a breakthrough moment.
Yes.
So I kind of want to hear that. And then obviously 79-80 for the men's was the inaugural year of the Big East. And the men's team winning that was a big deal and just set us on the path for success. But I like for all of you to kind of touch on that season and highlight what it meant. Because, you know, as I did just got some little notes, it was an incredible run.
Yeah.
That was the season we were 21-3.
Correct.
We were in like 2 or 3 tournaments. We won every tournament. It's just like we gelled and we had a great season.
Yeah, I think that year, Abby, we had
sophomore, right?
Yeah, it was her junior year, but we had 7 freshmen when I was there, and we all became sophomores. And we had Abby and Maria DeVito, who were 2 of the best leaders you could ever had, and they brought us all together. And that year is when we added Casey Comerford, who was probably one of the top recruits in the country.
Yep.
So, you know, Mr. Carr, Coach Carr, we all gelled that season. We had, I think, Ulrika from Sweden, and we had Juanita from Brazil. But everybody knew their roles. And, you know, I was the point guard. And when you got Abbie Dillon on your right side and Casey Comerford on your left side,
you're rolling.
It's done. You know, they were just dynamic wings. And we just rolled. We won bragging rights at the for DC, Maryland area at the Catholic University tournament. We won it that year. And then all we had to do was win that last game at Mount St. Mary's.
Oh yeah.
And we choked. Yeah. It was close.
It was close. And we had a great time doing it and a lot of fun. I just want to point it out. It's a good thing that you and Coach Thompson, Coach Carr, for the women's games, you guys were our only fans at the games, other than Erin's family and my family. We didn't have many fans at our games.
No, except remember, they would bring a keg of beer in the lobby, and because the drinking age was 18, and they'd say, free beer, come to the women's games. And then we would get more people because they got free beer. Remember that, Smitty?
I was at the game.
Smitty couldn't drink then.
I was at the game.
He was, no, Smitty, you know, I have to say, Smitty, you know, that my freshman year, even with Bebe and Lonnie, those guys who were, you know, seniors with us, Smitty and, you know, Big Daddy Ed Spriggs and Mike Hancock, Sleepy, we had a great class that year, and everybody came. The guys all came, and Coach Thompson came. And even years later, I was at a Georgetown women's game, probably 2 years ago, and there was Coach Thompson sitting there watching the game. And that's where it starts. You know, that the whole Hoya family, it is a family, and everybody supports everybody. It's a small, close knit. You know, we even let you tag along, Gene. Like a little bro.
I carry the bags and make the Gatorade.
You just smiled nice.
No, listen, in this company,
I had to beat them back.
That's exactly what I would be doing in this company.
I had to beat him. I had to beat him back sometime. Tell him to stay home.
Oh, he brought you home, Smitty. What are you talking about?
Hey.
So Smitty, touch on the 79-80 season for you. You were a sophomore. You had some big games. You played as a freshman. So yeah, what was that season like for you?
The 79-80 season was it was a great season. We had a good chemistry. We had, oh God, every position we had a great player at almost every position. Like the girls had a good point guard. We had that. We had the shooting guard, like Abbie, we had Sleepy, Craig, Shelton down there. I would tag along on the 3 spot and just fill in and do what I had to do. But to be the first to do something is always special, right? So we were the first team to win the Big East Conference Championship. So, and I remember that. I remember that. I think I had 17 points that game. I wasn't known for scoring. You know, it's funny, but the 2 times that I scored over 20 points at Georgetown, and I scored 28 in both of them, and one was with Gene up in Connecticut, and when he was in my way, I could have had 30. And
Trying to take a charge of my teammate.
yeah, and you know, the both times I scored over 20 points, we lost. So something told me, well, don't score so much, Smitty, so we'll win.
Well, I think all 3 of you are being humble. I think those were watermarks in Georgetown athletics, because if you fast forward, you know, everything starts from somewhere. So again, as I said, the goal of this was to salute and celebrate each one of you. And like, I guess I'd like to suggest going forward, more men's and women's, you know, getting together more, maybe virtually, obviously with the times being what they are now, we can do this more. I'd like to talk about that relationship between the men's and women's team. We kind of touched on it a little bit. But what was it like for you, Abbie? Did you feel like the men's team were really supportive when you were there?
Oh, definitely. Just to see him at the games. And I remember Big John used to stand up in the rafters outside his office, and you always knew where he was at the games. But we also socialized with the men outside of the games, and we'd see him on campus, talk to him, maybe near the pub.
Near the
Not
pub.
at it, near it.
I said near. But always very, very, very friendly and supportive.
Well, don't forget over the Christmas vacations, though, we had to stay there and practice. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
we
Well,
hung out-
I have a
we
lot
hung
of
out with
Smitty
each other.
stories. I have a lot of Smitty stories from them, but you know, it was funny. In that time, I mean, we were 18, you know, and it was different back then. I mean, the drinking age was 18. Yeah. We were in, you know, Christmas time. We were playing little games at Christmas, and it was just the men's and the women's team hanging out together. So we got really close with them. And I can remember we would, Big Daddy, we called him, Ed Spriggs. He had that big Cadillac, Smitty, and we would all pile in that big Cadillac. And we'd go watch, we went to University of Maryland, we'd watch the women's volleyball team. All of us would pile in. Mike and Smitty and Ed and Carrie, Maria, Casey, we'd all, you know, we even followed different sports, you know, with Jimmy Corcoran, the baseball teams, the football teams. I mean, but the men's team, we bonded over basketball, and they were all great guys. They were thoughtful guys. They cared about us. It was just an incredible relationship. And I have to say, Gene, we look now, I mean, I consider Smitty and Ed Spriggs 2 of my closest friends. You know, Smitty and I playing golf tournaments together. We see each other's families. We meet at games. It's just, it's a long.
Sounds like we need our own Hoya golf tournament.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have one. One.
You have to carry Smitty a lot of the times because he talks a good game, but no, I have to say, every tournament Smitty and I played in golf, we won, right, Smitty?
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's amazing that the friendship that we've carried over these 40-something years, man, it's just been amazing that we could stay together this long. And especially with, when you talk about Jimmy Corcoran. Jimmy Corcoran and I grew up in the same area and played against each other all through boys club, the high school. And then we both played football and basketball. And then we end up coming to the same college and being on the same team. How cool is that?
That very cool.
Yeah, and to stay friends and families for all those years. And we were, you know, of course, we're very competitive.
But you know, you have all the reunions, and we have a standing group text with Smitty and Ed and Carrie, Casey, Maria, Jim, where we just, you know, all the time we're in touch. We see each other, and even Abbie. You know, I'm retiring down in Rehoboth. Abbie has a house down here. Yeah. Joe Biden's neighbor. So I always say, I'm going to ride by and see Abbie. So
hey, Erin, I have a question for you because I get this question a lot. People always say, is your team, let's say our team junior year when we were 21-3, how do you think they would compare against any of the teams playing today, any of the women's teams? And I always respond, if we had the nutrition, the workouts, the personal trainers, the, you know, more than one pair of sneakers, I would say we were all very good athletes and we would definitely hold our own. What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. No, I think the difference is, I think IQ wise, basketball fundamental. I mean, Abbie was probably one of the smartest basketball players I ever played against. You know, she was only 5'8", but she would lead in rebounds. She was smart, you know, and it's a lot of fundamentals. You know, I think some of that lacks it's more athletic ability now. Back then, we didn't have all that as much. So we relied on fundamentals, but you know, we were 5'7", 5'8". The point guard now are 6 foot. We had one 6 footer. Now the teams, most of them are 6 foot for women. So it's different, but
I still think we'd hold our own against them.
I absolutely do too, Abbie.
They always get that question on their site. I guess the Hoya locker room always try to find out who was the best college basketball team at Georgetown, and
that's not me. That's not me. You got to
talk about the championship team, but I would give that 80 and that 79-80 team. Well, the 82 team, of course.
Okay, so we're on the same page. The 82 team to me is the best team ever.
Oh man, the 82 team was.
The 82 team was awesome.
Remember, I said, Gene, if Smitty would have not let Michael Jordan make that basket over there, so would have had 2 titles, right?
So Smitty actually ruined my bonus question. So I had a bonus question for each of you. I was going to give you a name, and it was obviously somebody who went to Georgetown, but it was going to speak into the Hoya family thing. And I was going to give Abbie Jim Corcoran because they're both in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, right.
But thank you, Smitty, for ruining that for me. And then the other person was going to be Casey Comerford and Diane Tolliver. So if one of you could take that other person, because what for me, we may not have been high-fiving each other or, you know, having these long drawn-out conversations, but the impact, how you were inspired, for me, just watching you, how you went about your job, how Abbie called it a job, how you went about your work, how you carried yourself on campus. You know, as a freshman, it was inspirational. And I can only touch on that now as a 60-year-old man. But I just want to thank each and every one of you for being, you know, role models without trying to be role models. You all were awesome in that right for me. And that's why this show is cool for me. And I'm glad you took the time. But Erin, if you could take one Diane Tolliver or Casey Comerford, I'd like to hear what you thought, like their impact or as part of the Hoya family, as Smitty did with Jimmy Corcoran.
Oh, well, you know, first of all, Casey Comerford was hands down one of the best female basketball players ever. And to get her at Georgetown, you know, most of her family went to Georgetown, but she was recruited by everybody, you know, all the schools, and she chose Georgetown because of the family impact. And she, you know, combining her, I think, with, you know, Abbie and myself, and then when Kit came and we had Carrie and Ginger, we just molded into a team. But Casey brought the cockiness from Brooklyn that, you know, we needed. She played like a guy. She did. Yeah. She was athletic. She was, Abbie, don't you think? I mean,
she had played a lot on the playground.
Yeah.
She
This-
had a special skill.
But she did. She, you know, she made All-American, and she really, you know, Abbie started it, and Casey just brought it through. And then with that trend, you know, we got Diane Tolliver, who came in, and thank God she was a few years behind me because she played point guard. So, you know, I didn't want her taking my spot until I left. But you know, it just brought us depth, and it brought us kind of bringing in the you know, better players from DC. You know, Diane was from DC, and again, she was athletic, so that whole trend kind of started. You know, well, Abbie and I weren't the most athletic. We had the basketball IQ, but then the athletics started coming in. But you know, again, you know, Casey Comerford, you know, hands down was one of the greatest players ever. And had she played off her fourth year, you know, there's a lot of turmoil there, but she would have been at the top of all the record books. And on top of Abbie too, what we talk about is, you know, back then, I think we played 90 some games. Now they're playing 130 games. We didn't have a 3-point line. We played with the big basketball. So Abbie would have had hundreds of more points because all she did was shot from the
All I did was shoot.
They make it known. They make it known when they talk about Abbie. She played before the 3-point shot.
Before the 3-point.
Just to let you know, if there was a 3-point shot, she would have obliterated everything.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think Abbie and I both shot from the men's 3-point line.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't getting inside anywhere. We stayed on the outside.
And Erin deserved every assist she was given and should have been given more. She was the total playmaker, knew where everybody was on the court, made it all happen.
Well, you know, and Jean, I was kind of looking at the record books, and you know, that it was Abbie's, I think, senior year. The next year, we, you know, our team that many years later still holds the single game assist record. And I was told Kid Happen that if she could made a layup, we would have had a lot more that game. I love you, Kid.
Hey, Smitty, I want you to talk about, because you brought up Corcoran, and you know that Corcoran's talk about competitive. He might be the most competitive person that I've ever met. Talk about the time he walked on and being a part of the 82 team.
Oh yeah, Jim. A couple guys got hurt, so coach looked for somebody to bring up, and they had a little JV team, and Jimmy was on it. And being a great athlete as he is, coach brought him up and gave him a jersey. Didn't put his name on it. He played, he got in the game, and he was happy as a lark, though. I mean, you know, we had such a good relationship with a lot of guys on the football team, like Roger Daly and Chris.
Roger Daly, shout out. He was my roommate for half of my freshman year.
Roger Daly, who's supposed to be one of the other best athletes. He always say he's the best athlete behind me. But and Chris O'Mara, man, those guys. But Jimmy and I, like I said, we grew up together, competing against each other, and he got the best of me in high school. He was at Georgetown Prep. I was at Churchill. They did beat us in basketball. We never played them in football. We played them twice in basketball, and they beat us both times. He never let me forget that he beat the state champions. He always ride me about that. But and then I always called Jimmy a brother from another mother because we were so much alike.
Okay, I'm not gonna say that I see that, but I'll run with it.
I wanted to give a shout out to Frank Rienzo, who was the athletic director when we were there. And I was the first year with Title IX, which was passed in 1977. So schools had to put more money into the women's program. And I really think that he really took it to heart and wanted to give the women as many opportunities as possible at Georgetown.
Yeah, I probably should give Frank Rienzo a shout out every time I do locker room.
There's a lot of that people like that, man. Mary Finland, oh my God,
yeah.
That's her heart. She was the backbone of our program.
Yeah.
From a women's standpoint, what would you consider the backbone of the program when you guys were there? I've heard you talk about Coach Carr, and he sounds like he was that guy. But was there an assistant coach? Was there someone on campus that was, such a big supporter of the program that helped you get through those initial days of women's
I
college
think we
basketball?
relied on each other. The players, we all got along. It was all about teamwork, and we went to each other with questions.
You don't have to mention my name, Abby.
No, I think it was. I think, you didn't have all the assistant coaches and
Right.
everybody else. We relied on each other, and, the men's team, we all of us relied on our friendships and the bonds we had. And
Erin, didn't Mr. Carr have a full-time government job? And
he
that's why,
did.
yeah, he
did.
had a full-time job, and he did this. That's why we practiced 7 to 10 at night.
Yes.
You guys are absolute pioneers. Absolute pioneers. You had the wagon and the outside. That's how you got to the games in a wagon. Like, you didn't even have a bus.
No, we had to drive the vans. Remember,
Yes.
Abby, packing those vans to go to games sometimes, or scrimmages.
The
Yeah.
one footnote from the 81-82 season for us that I always like to remind guys on the team is that in that 81-82 season, we started going to the Capitol Center.
Oh,
And we took a yellow school bus to the Capitol Center. We took a yellow school bus to the New Orleans Superdome to the national championship game in a yellow school bus. Patrick would be up front with his legs like a praying mantis, like up front. I mean, but we didn't, it was okay. I mean, I think that's what made us chippy back then, Smitty.
right.
Oh yeah, in them tight shorts.
Oh yeah.
I would say there was nothing more fun than those men's games at McDonough Gym, though.
I agree.
Nothing beats that.
Nothing
I
beats
know that crowd noise was woof, and it was so hot in there.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it was, and that helped us. Remember, Coach
Of
Thompson
course.
had that gym,
Yeah.
and we practiced in that gym, and you just sweat.
Right.
And our families would come to the game, and they were sweating. We're like, just
How
wear a
about-
t-shirt. But it helped us because when the other teams got there, we were used to practicing in it.
Yeah.
And but I have to tell one story with Coach Thompson when I think it was my sophomore year, and I got elbowed in the mouth and lost a couple of teeth.
Oh.
And I wanted to go back in the game. I was in the training room, and my mom was in there. She didn't know much about basketball, but she came in, and Coach Thompson came in. He sat there the whole time with me until they got me to the ambulance to go to the hospital. And I'll remember that he was at that game, just sat there and held my hand, and he left. My mom was like, "That was so nice of that man, and he's so tall. Who is he?"
I want to, that's an awesome story. Thanks for sharing that, Erin. But I want to ask Abbie and Erin about Coach Carr. Because a couple of times you guys have referred to him as Mr. Carr, Coach Carr. He had a government job. He seems like, was he more of a teacher than a coach? Like break down that relation. He sounds like an awesome individual.
He was a wonderful, wonderful man. He was like a grandfather to all of us. He was a great teacher, a great coach, different from the coaches today. He was a little on the soft side, and this is a story I'll share. Junior year, when we were getting more serious, he thought that we should probably start lifting weights. And I don't know, I just didn't feel like it, or I already thought I was muscular, didn't want to be more muscular. So I told him I was really afraid that lifting weights would cause my shot to be off, and I didn't think it was a good idea. So he said, "Okay, you don't have to lift weights." And I sat in the weight room while everybody else lifted weights.
I never thought you were a prima donna. I never thought that.
Oh no, he was a total softie, and I remember that, Abby, because I was mad because I had to lift weights, but I got out of jump roping because I told him I was afraid to jump rope because I wasn't coordinated, and then I would trip over the jump rope and maybe break my ankle. So I never had to jump rope. He was a softie, but I have to tell you about him. He and the coolest thing is, you know, I work at Northrop Grumman. His granddaughter worked there. I knew his sister, his daughter and son-in-law moved out to where I lived in Maryland. His granddaughter took her to lunch, and she didn't really know her grandfather that much because he had passed away. And I told her all the stories of him at Georgetown, and she was crying. She was like, "Thank you so much." He was the nicest soul. His family was awesome.
Here's another Mr. Carr story. One time we were late leaving Georgetown. I forget where we were going, but it was somewhere like maybe Philly. It was a couple hours away. And we had a real bus with a bus driver, and the bus driver was late getting to Georgetown. He got to Georgetown, and then we were going to like downtown DC and waited out some apartment building for like a half an hour because the bus driver was bringing his girlfriend on the trip. And Mr. Carr said it was okay that we would wait for her.
Smitty, can you imagine something like that, Smitty?
Oh no.
She came to the team meals with us and everything. The bus driver was always included in the meals.
Unbelievable. All right, guys, we're coming up on an hour. I've taken up more than enough of your time. I can't thank you enough for popping in on the Sunday or stopping through on the Sunday. I'd like to end by asking each of you, because it's clear to me, we, and I include myself in this, we all came to Georgetown, not necessarily trying to find ourselves, but you know, we landed there kind of inauspiciously. We landed there not really knowing how it would end up. And I think each of you have left an indelible mark on the university. When, if ever, have you like just thought back, this was my defining moment? And what moment was that? And I didn't put that in the conversational questions because it just literally came to me because it's been such a cool conversation. But I'd like to know, like, what do you think your impact, your legacy, like something around there? I mean, you could answer it any way you want. I mean, I'm just fond of each of your journey to Georgetown, your story. What do you think your defining moment was, or your lasting?
I'll be short and sweet. My defining moment was graduating. As far as my legacy, I hope that people remember me as a player who did what he had to do and everything that needed to be done, without any accolades or anything like that. It was just whatever needed to be done. I definitely would try to do it or tell Coach Thomas that I could do it. And if it meant covering Panone, you know how big that guy was. I had to do it, I did it. So it was just somebody that played hard and looked out for everybody else.
Awesome. That wasn't short and sweet, but it was lovely.
Short and sweet.
It was lovely.
I think my defining moment was at the dean's meeting at graduation. They had a ceremony for the business school, and I didn't know it, but at that ceremony, they awarded me the Robert A. Duffy Scholar Athlete Award, and which was a total shock. I was one of the first, not the first, but one of the first female to receive the award, and it's given to any male or female graduating senior. And for all the doubters in high school that thought, wow, she's going to Georgetown. And I just loved every second of Georgetown, took all the opportunities from it, and was just so honored to receive that award. I would also say I'd like my legacy to be that people thought I was a nice person and she could shoot the ball.
Yeah, definitely could. Yes, she definitely could. I forgot to say that another defining moment was, like Abbie was saying, but to be on a team with Patrick Ewing and Sleepy Floyd and Spriggs, Hancock, and Eugene and Freddie and the rest of them, and for Thompson to pick me as the most valuable player that year, that meant a lot. It showed that a lot of hard work paid off at the end.
And I think for me, you know, just being the point guard of that team and maybe setting the stage for all the great point guards that played after me. You know, I was captain my junior and senior year, and just, you know, seeing what a leader is and what it takes to be a leader, that I was a role model for others, and that, you know, I had stitches in my eye, I had teeth knocked out, I had bruises everywhere, I was banged up, but I never missed a game. I gave 110%. And, you know, and that I did graduate from Georgetown with a lot of help from my friends and my roommates. But, you know, even to this day, just when I mentioned that I went to Georgetown and I played at Georgetown, people look at me like, wow, you went to a top school and you know, you played a Division I sport and you graduated in 4 years. And that alone is a great accomplishment. So, and, you know, just on top of it, Gene, Smitty, all the guys, you know, on the teams that we played with, the friendships, they're memories for a lifetime. And we still have these friendships, and that I am so blessed for, you know, so I love all the Hoyas.
I'm going to wrap this up in a bow, if I can. Being able to talk to Abbie Dillon is—
Yes, it's good to see Abbie Dillon.
It's crazy for me. Again, I was a freshman.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you first and foremost for coming through, and your mark and your legacy's intact. Erin, I knew you, right? And we're fast forwarding to this point, and you were gritty and you were all about the business, and you didn't necessarily have to look good doing it, but the hair was always all over the place. But I want to thank you and your heart, your hustle and your tenacity. Again, that you don't know who you're having an impact on. So you had an impact on me. And thank you so much for taking time to come through. Smitty, I love you. You were my roommate sophomore year. I gave you more pub by giving you an E on the back of the jersey. So, but you were a role model and a mentor, and that's the last thing you would ever set out to be. You were a glue guy. And when you got MVP in '82, it was well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hoya family, thank you so much. Let's spread this. I got your numbers. If you just get a random text or picture that I may find of you, I'm not a stalker, but this to me is immeasurable. This is what Hoya family really looks like and what it really means. So
thank you, Gene. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Go Hoyas.
Go Hoyas.
Love you, Ab. Love you, Smitty.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Great to see you.
Good to see you.
All right.
Bye,
Bye.
Gino.
Bye.
Rascal.